My name is John Reuter, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for Kyndi. Thank you for taking the time to attend our webinar. We are very excited to show you the Kyndi generative AI answer engine and the incredible impact on knowledge management. I believe you'll be pretty surprised at what is now possible and how we've addressed all the challenges of generative AI today. I'd like to introduce our two speakers. Ryan Welsh is Kyndi's founder and CEO, and Mark Oney is our Chief Product Officer. Just some housekeeping notes. Everyone will be muted during the presentation. You can submit questions via the Q&A button at any time during the webinar. We'll answer them at the end. Chat is disabled. If we don't have time to get to everyone's questions during the live session, we'll respond after the webinar. This webinar is being recorded, and everyone will receive the recording post-webinar. Feel free to share it with your colleagues. And so I'd like to start with a quick poll just to gauge where the audience stands at the moment with respect to generative AI, obviously a very much discussed topic. Please take 20 seconds to answer the two questions. You may need to scroll to get to the second one. So I'll get this started here. So please have a go. Is it working? Oh, there we go. Now I see some responses. Okay. All righty. Okay, so let's see what we ended up with. So on the, what are the main challenges associated with knowledge management in your organization? Well, everyone is struggling with finding the correct information that users are looking for, and a significant majority have to work on consolidating and organizing the siloed information which is scattered in different systems. And then I guess everyone shares some of the problems. On the second question, what is the status of deploying generative AI for knowledge management in your organization? The majority are assessing for future evaluation, and a smaller number are in a wait and see at the moment, which is totally understandable and appropriate in some organizations. All right, so with that said, I'm going to turn over to Ryan to get started on our discussion. Ryan?
Perfect. Thank you, John. So what we're going to cover today is challenges with the current knowledge management process. So we saw in the survey some of the current challenges, but we'll address and bring up some of the other ones that we see. We're also going to introduce to you what we call an efficient and thorough knowledge management with generative artificial intelligence. And so I'm sure everyone has been reading a lot over the past year about the breakthroughs that we've seen in Gen AI. What's really exciting about that is applying them to knowledge management. And we have a really cool demo for you at the end where Mark will walk you through a few things. But one of the things that I've been super excited about using our own product is building this really robust knowledge base in just a few minutes. And so you can actually use generative AI to generate topics and question and answer pairs and FAQs. It's actually a really, really interesting demo that you'll see later on today. And so the challenges that we see with knowledge management, and I put my most frustrating one at the top, which seems to be everyone's most frustrating one as well from the survey. It's just outdated, conflicting, and siloed information. Just a really big challenge in knowledge management. The other challenge that we see is managing the growing volume of information. And so as the information grows, how do you maintain FAQs? How do you maintain the curation of that content? How do you make sure it covers all the relevant content? It's just a really challenging problem as the volume of information continues to grow. The other thing that we see is that there's really no easy way to add domain-specific knowledge to systems. And so when you try to bring in a machine learning system or some other type of system, there's a lot of really important knowledge that knowledge management folks have about their specific industry or a specific company or a specific group within a company. And how do you kind of bring together the best of machine learning with the best of human knowledge? It's a really challenging problem that exists today. The other one is, how do you understand how well you're actually managing the entire curation process, the answering of questions? And so, there's a lot of analytic capabilities out there today, but I've really rarely find them helpful in really understanding, is the content that I'm putting into a knowledge repository answering a user's questions? When a question comes in, are they getting those answers from that knowledge repository? It's really challenging to see that. And so with the Kyndi system, and I don't know if Mark's going to cover it later in the demo, but you're able to see those kind of analytic capabilities. And kind of the last challenge that we see is really measuring the ROI. And so we hear a lot of statistics out there about people not being able to find answers to questions and find the right information at the right time. How do you know that some of the systems that you're actually rolling out are improving or making a benefit, delivering a benefit to end users and ultimately the company overall? And so this cost of poor knowledge management, I just touched on these kind of statistics, is the most credible ones that I've seen in the academic research is that employees spend about 20% of their time searching for answers to questions. Obviously, that equates to about 1 day a week. I mean, this is just insane to think about how much time people spend looking for the relevant information. And then when we think about external stakeholders, people that are coming to sites, or whether it's customer service or marketing sites, we see that a good chunk of folks have a negative experience with a chatbot or some other type of search capability. And we see that about half of B2B buyers now create vendor shortlists without ever talking to the vendor. And so if you're not able to answer users' questions or visitors' questions to your site quickly and easily and efficiently, then you likely won't even make it onto that short list. And so what we've built here at Kyndi is something we call an answer engine. And so we believe fundamentally that we're past this era of search engines where you type in keywords and you get this long list of results that you need to click through and read through and then ultimately control F your way through to find the answer. We believe we have now entered an era where people can ask very specific questions and get direct, contextually relevant and trustworthy answers from computer systems. And that's what we've built here at Kyndi. Just covering the architecture at a very high level, if this looks complicated, that's because it is. One of the beautiful things that we've done here at Kyndi is we've done all this for you. And so similar to a search engine, where if you want to go buy a search engine, you actually go buy the search engine, you don't buy the individual components. How answer engines are built today is your development teams or your data science teams actually need to build, manage, and maintain all the individual components. And so what we've done here at Kyndi is we've packaged all that up in a very easy to use, easy to consume way in something that we call an answer engine. Now, uniquely, some of these components are actually highly differentiated, specifically this cognitive memory, which is a patented piece of technology that we have here at Kyndi that combines the best of machine learning, these vector-based approaches, which while still allowing us to encode human knowledge into this representation to ultimately capture all of that knowledge that knowledge management folks have to create a representation to best answer users' questions. And so again, very high level, if it looks complicated, it is, but the real beauty of the Kyndi product is we handle all this. And so we make it super simple. The major use cases that we've actually been seeing across our customer base, as a lot of folks have probably seen, is customer support. And so how do you enable users to come to a site, come to a portal, ask natural language questions, and get specific answers to their questions directly? So with answer engines, these generative AI answer engines, this is now very, very possible. Kind of previous generation of customer support bots and other things where you can ask any question as long as it's one of the 5 questions that are hard-coded into the system. With generative AI capabilities, you can ask any question and really get robust answers to those questions. Internally, we're also seeing self-service agent support. So let's assume that not all of the questions can be answered in a self-service manner. Well, you can actually really increase the productivity of agents with a generative AI answer engine. And then, of course, with internal stakeholders and employees of the business, just with all the different knowledge repositories across the enterprise, empowering them to ask natural language questions and get answers to those questions just really increases the productivity of those stakeholders. And so when we talk about an answer engine for knowledge management, we're talking about moving from a challenge where you see outdated, conflicting, and siloed information to, with the Kyndi system, you're actually able to auto-update answers to keep up with these content changes. And so what I've found incredibly powerful from our system is, when something changes in the underlying data, the system's able to automatically update frequently asked questions or other answers that it has generated previously, and always be generating answers based on that new and up-to-date information. What Mark's going to show you today, and I keep saying this, that this is super powerful, is because I use it all the time, is the auto generation of topics and questions. And so you can use generative AI to both generate an answer, but you can also use generative AI to read your content, generate a list of the topics that your content discusses, and then also generate a knowledge base of FAQs that generates new and novel questions and new and novel answers that can be answered by the underlying content. And so this is a really, really powerful capability to really build out a robust knowledge base in only a few minutes. With the Kyndi system uniquely, you are able to embed human curated knowledge into the system. And so this is important for enterprise use cases where industries use language differently, companies use language differently, groups within companies may use language slightly differently. And so you're able to bring the best of large language models with some of these vector-based approaches, but then also encode that human curated knowledge to really make the domain-specific tuning super, super easy. Then you're moving from this place where you have a lack of insights into the effectiveness of a knowledge management system to really detailed analytics on how well are users' questions being answered. Does the content actually answer the question? If not, do we need to create new content? All of these really rich analytics that you can use to have this real deep connection with the people that are really trying to consume the content. Then obviously from those analytics, there's a lot of tangible metrics that you can develop to really measure the ROI from these knowledge management systems. And so this is just really a fundamental shift from kind of the old way of doing things to a knowledge management era where it's really powered by a lot of these large language models that have been coming out over the last several years. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark to touch on this one slide and then walk us through a demo.
Great, thanks, Ryan. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So today I'll be demoing several new features from our latest release of our Kyndi Clarity product. Kyndi Clarity is an enterprise-grade answer engine that leverages our generative AI and our natural language capabilities of our underlying award-winning platform. In today's demo, I'll walk you through 4 key features. The first is our expanded use of generative AI to automate the bootstrapping of a Kyndi Clarity knowledge base of hundreds of relevant question-answer pairs in as little as an hour. These auto-generated topics and question-answer pairs are grounded to your content, so that allows you to complete control over what gets published to your users. Next, I'll share the latest addition to our rich collection of generative AI-powered answer engine interfaces, the citations widget. This easily embeddable widget was inspired by our work with several content companies that deal with publications or research papers or information services. And like our intelligent answer widget, it serves up both curated and auto-generated answers. It also delivers explainability via a citations section, which lists the source materials that primarily contributed to the auto-generated answer. So that makes it very easy to reference the source of an answer later on in the process. Next, in all of our generative AI powered answer widgets, we've added end-user feedback options. That includes positive feedback of relevant answers, but also actionable insights for unsatisfactory answers. And then finally, we continue to expand upon our no-code tools for tuning and optimizing our products by enabling you to export query histories from our analytics dashboard, which can then be imported into our forecasting tool. Maintaining a knowledge base that can answer 80% or more of end-user queries in one click becomes significantly easier to manage. So let's jump right in. I'm going to start looking at a self-service use case using content from GlaxoSmithKline's Benlysta drug microsite. And so we can see the knowledge base of the hub here. The first thing I'll show you is when we set up the hub, we have two different settings that we can establish for the hub. The first one refers to something that Ryan mentioned, which is verifying answers that are auto-generated before you publish them. So this was something that was part of the hub prior to our most recent release, but we've since added a second setting, this topic question set automation. The default here is to auto-suggest. And so as new content is coming into the Kyndi platform, we're able to analyze that content and auto-generate topics and question-answer pairs topics that are covered within your content and question-answer pairs for questions that can be answered by your content. So let's take a look at what that looks like. We've set this one up. We did an initial ingestion of content. And the first thing we did with our generative AI is to identify a number of topics that are covered within this drug microsite. And you'll notice up on top, it's also flagging me that I have 4 new suggested queries. So last night we did another synchronization with the source content on the Benlysta microsite. And what we discovered was that content contained some additional topics, in this case, copay program, renal response, clinical studies, and pediatric patients. I have the option of thumbs up, thumbs down, or skip over. So if I like the topic and I want to add it, I'll simply click the thumbs up. If I don't like the next topic, I can do a thumbs down. And if I want to study a little bit more about these topics before I commit, I can skip over those topics as well. When we drill into a particular topic, you'll see that when we initially set it up, we have a number of question-answer pairs that were pre-populated. But it was as well with last night's content sync. I have some more question-answer pairs that were discovered within the new content that we ingested. And similarly, I have the opportunity to thumbs up, thumbs down, or skip over each of these question-answer pairs, determining what I want to add to the knowledge base. If I look at a particular question, what are the symptoms of PML? You can see that I have a combination of both verified and curated answers. So a verified answer represents a dynamic answer within the knowledge base. If the answer for this particular question in the knowledge base is impacted by a content update, here's the question-answer pair within the knowledge base. If that were to change based upon a content ingestion, then I would see a new summarization here, and I'd be given the opportunity to replace the then current answer with the new proposed answer, guaranteeing that our knowledge base is going to stay in lockstep with your system of record content. We also have curated answers. So in the case of a curated answer, I have full control over how this answer is phrased. So while I may initially generate this using our generative AI techniques, I may want to add a a specific link to the answer. On the left-hand side, you can see the Markdown editor that allows me to have full control over font treatment, numbered or bulleted lists, embedding links, embedding images, et cetera. And on the right-hand side, you can see how that would be displayed for customers. So that's a little bit of an overview of the auto-generated topics and questions. And you can see again that in as little as an hour, we can ingest content, build a hub, do the discovery of topics and the generation of question answer pairs, and end up with a very robust knowledge base of hundreds of questions that can answer the types of questions your customers may have based upon information contained in your content. Next, I'm going to shift over to show the citation widget. And to do that, I'm going to use a different data set. I'm going to be showing you a research paper use case and data set to demonstrate the citation widget. This data set contains a number of satellite mission reports. So here's the hub. Again, you can see we have a number of topics and question answer pairs within the hub. If I show you first our intelligent answers widget, which has been one of the most popular user interfaces that we've had. This is leveraging generative AI. And you can see that with the end user question on top, if I were to ask a different question, I'm going to ask about the primary objective of a particular satellite mission. So let's put primary mission. I'm going to do a search on that. It finds a match within our knowledge base. What is the purpose of this particular mission? You can see that we dynamically generated an auto-generated summary. And in this case, you can view sources and we can see all of the natural language search results that we fed to our generative AI in order to derive this grounded, concise, relevant answer. Now let's look at that same question, and we're going to go over to the citation widget, and we'll ask that same question, and you'll see we're displaying the same answer on top. In addition, we'll have the same people also ask. These are other questions within the knowledge base that are topically related to the question, just not as strong a match as this auto-generated summary that we promote on top. We're going to see the same thing here. The same people also ask the same summary, but in this case, instead of a long list of passages and excerpts from your documents, the citation widget is really focusing on the search results that primarily contributed to the summarization. So for someone who's doing research and they find an answer they're looking for, it's very easy to be able to capture the document title, a link to the document. We can click through on this document, and it's going to take us directly to the mission report that contains the information we're looking for. And to make it even easier, I can also leverage this copy to clipboard up on top. So if I click on the copy to clipboard, you can see it's copied that to my scratch pad. Here's the widget that we just looked at. We clicked on the copy to clipboard, and you can see that I was able to capture exactly the information. Here's the query. Here's the auto-generated summarization, and then the citation widget and link as well. If we did have a reference to the author and the date of publication, you'd see that displayed within the citations widget, and you'd see that displayed in the copy to clipboard as well. So this makes it very easy for people that are doing research to be able to find relevant answers that they're looking for, copy the citations to a clipboard, and that makes it easy for later reference in any kind of summary or research write-up that they're doing. In addition, looking at the citations widget, we're also adding end user feedback. So you can see we have a thumbs up, thumbs down. If I like the answer, I feel it's very relevant, I can give it a thumbs up. If for any reason I'm dissatisfied the answer, I can give it a thumbs down. We capture additional information. What was the main reason behind your your dissatisfaction. And in addition, we can add a free-form text field to capture a little bit more information that helps your content team or your brand management team really understand what the end user was looking for and why the answer that we served up might not have met their objectives. Next, I'm going to move over to the analytics dashboard. And what I'm showing you here is a dashboard that shows the strength of the answers we're serving up. So the purpose of this is to help to draw a direct line between the topics of interest and the questions that your target audience are asking, and the coverage and the quality of your content using the strength and the relevance of the answers we're serving up as a proxy. So here you can see 4 buckets: excellent, strong, average, and weak. We strive to make the combination of these two 80% or greater. That means in one click, your users are finding that relevant answer that they're looking for. You see those same categories represented on the right-hand side. I can expand those. These show the questions within the knowledge base that end user queries are hitting. And if I expand upon each of them, you'll see underneath the actual end user queries. So unlike products that might give you a cluttered list of disparate queries that you have to make sense of, we're using natural language techniques to do query clustering to say these different ways that the end user phrased this question are synonymous with this question in the knowledge base. And as a result, we're able to serve up highly relevant answers that were either auto-generated or curated by your team. The feature we've added in this latest release is this export queries. So if I click on export queries, you'll notice that it downloaded an export of this particular search history. The search history, if I were to open that file, would look something like this with these queries that we captured. And now I can open up a forecasting tool that allows me to drop in a new file, import a data set, run the forecast, and we're going to see something like this, where again, I can look at the scoring in each of the 4 buckets: excellent, strong, average, and weak. It's showing me a similar pie chart and percentages and query counts by bucket. This is yet another tool that allows us to really tune and optimize the knowledge base to ensure that it stays in sync both with changes within your source content on one side and the topics and questions and needs of your target audience, your employees or your customers on the other side. So using no-code tools in relative real time, non-technical people are able to apply tuning to the system and see the results of those tunings and optimizations reflected by this forecasting tool. So in summary, I showed how easy it is with Kyndi's natural language or generative AI to bootstrap a knowledge base of hundreds of highly relevant topics and question pairs based solely on your content. I showed you our latest AI user interface, the citations widget, which makes referencing key insights easier for researchers. We saw the addition of user feedback as a means of further bolstering the signals that we can use to develop and deliver highly relevant results in one click, 80% of the time. And finally, I showed how easy it is to leverage answer engine histories to seed the no-code tool like this forecasting tool to keep Kyndi Clarity knowledge base in sync with the needs of your customers. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Mark. So I appreciate that we shared a lot of information. The reality is that there are a lot of what we perceive as beneficial consequences to various people's roles in using an answer engine versus a more traditional search engine. Obviously, it's beneficial that end users, whether internal or external, get their answers. We are frankly seeing more easily demonstrated quantitative efficiency benefits for knowledge and content management leaders. So as I mentioned at the beginning, if you have questions, please post them in the Q&A at the bottom. So we do have a couple questions already, so I will share those. So this question is for Ryan. There's a bunch of them, but I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. So there's a lot of vendors have added Gen AI to their existing tools, and they also talk about large language models, et cetera. How does Kyndi compare to all these other vendors who have large language models or retrieval augmented generation on top of what they were doing before?
Yeah, what is important is in the retrieval augmented generation, or RAG architecture as people refer to it. So what is very important is the retrieval part of the retrieval augmented generation. And so at Kyndi, we've always been building the two components together. So the large language model and this storage and retrieval mechanism. And why that's important is the quality of an answer that a GPT model is going to generate is going to be dependent upon the amount of information that you put into the GPT model to synthesize. And so if it's a classic keyword search vendor that is now adding generative AI on top of those search results, they will be taking all of those keyword search results, which historically weren't very good, putting them into a generative model and saying, synthesize the single best answer from all these noise that I just fed to you. That leads to suboptimal answers to questions, and it actually increases the likelihood of hallucination. At Kyndi, we've developed this external memory, or the storage and retrieval mechanism, that returns very small pieces of information. So all the signal from all the different data sets, it's actually the very specific sentences that answer the user's question. And so instead of feeding 10 results of several pages each, let's just say 2 or 3 pages each, 3 pages each, 30 pages into a GPT model, we'd be feeding 30 sentences into a GPT model. And those sentences are all the sentences that actually contain the answer. And so because we're feeding a much smaller amount of information into that GPT model, the quality of the answer is significantly higher, and the probability of hallucination is significantly lower.
Thank you, Ryan. Mark, there's a couple other questions, and I'll paraphrase here. We don't have any curated content or FAQs at the moment, so how do we use Kyndi?
Yeah, as I showed you today, our novel use of generative AI to bootstrap a knowledge base of hundreds of relevant question answer pairs based solely on your content can get you up and running very quickly. If you add to that the powerful natural language analytics that keep your knowledge base aligned with the interests and needs of your target audience, together that approach ensures that the needs of your customers and the quality and coverage of your content are in sync. So that allows you to deliver highly relevant answers. So if you have an FAQ to start with, we'll ingest that within the system, and that's another form of bootstrapping a knowledge base. But in the absence of any FAQ, you can rely on our generative AI capabilities to bootstrap a very robust knowledge base in very little time.
Thank you, Mark. Ryan, there's another set of questions I'm going to ask you. It has to do with, so not all of our data is public facing. We have data behind the firewall. So how does Kyndi use generative AI answer engines to use this customer data? How's it protected? How is sensitive data protected? Address that, please.
Yeah, I mean, Mark can touch more on like how the actual data is protected, but I'll actually touch on whether or not because a lot of people ask this question, whether or not we use that data to train models, then transfer them to other customers. The answer is no. So we are not training a model from that behind the firewall proprietary confidential information. And then even if we were to fine tune something, those learnings do not get transferred to new customers. And so in our approach, what we're effectively doing is bringing in a pre-trained GPT model. And with this external storage and retrieval mechanism, we can put everything into that storage and retrieval, retrieve information out of that, push that into a pre-trained model, and have it synthesize the single best answer. And so we're not actually training a large language model on the enterprise content. And then if we were to, say, fine tune a language model for a specific customer, that fine-tuned language model becomes specific to that customer and does not get transferred to other customers. Mark, do you want to touch on any of the other security aspects of?
And to add to what Ryan said, we also ensure that customer data is always protected. We have a zero trust security framework, and we're also integrating GDPR and CCPA compliant enterprise data privacy measures into our answer engine. Also, you mentioned content behind the firewall. So we have a variety of ways to bring content into the platform. We can ingest lists of URLs. We can crawl websites. You can specify a depth, breadth, subdomains to include or exclude. We can mirror documents from a repository like SharePoint or Confluence into an Amazon S3 bucket. Or the most popular is probably a JSON-L export. So most content repositories or website builders support some form of exporting content in either XML or a JSON format. We find that that's very flexible in terms of being able to do the field mapping between your various systems of record in the Kyndi platform. And it makes it very easy to create a nightly synchronization where we're just looking at delta changes between your systems of record, could be multiple repositories and the Kyndi platform. And then as we demoed earlier, that delta synchronization may flag dynamic answers within the Kyndi Clarity knowledge base that are impacted by those system of record changes. And so you'll see those answers that are impacted, and you'll have an opportunity to approve updates to those answers real time.
Thank you, Mark. And I know Brian and Mark both mentioned it, just to reinforce, Kyndi is not using random information from the internet in any of the tuning annotations that we discussed. While it is possible for a specific customer to say, I would like to look at some specific information on the internet, it would only be the specific URLs that the customer specifies. It wouldn't be anything in general. One more question here. We have time for Ryan. Can Kyndi's answer engine extract valuable information from social media content?
Yeah, short answer is yes, especially when that social media content is textual content and text rich. So the short answer is yes.
All right, thank you. So we were able to answer the questions from the audience. So that concludes the Q&A and the webinar. So as I sort of alluded to before, a lot of information here. We would be very happy to talk to anyone on the call individually and look at your content specifically, so we can do maybe a little demo on your data to show you what is possible, and so you can easily contrast with whatever type of existing solution you're now using to manage your content and knowledge, and then surface that information to your end users. Everyone will receive a link to the webinar in a few days. Please feel free to share this with your colleagues. And please reach out to info@kyndi.com if you'd like to learn more about the Kyndi solution in your environment and do a demo on your data. So thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.